when you say you'll be more active on YouTube and then you just don't. That's not me. Absolutely not. Nope. Here I am, back with another video. Another bullet journaling video too. I didn't mean to disappear for, I think it's been more than a month now since my last video. A month or something like that. But it wasn't a plan to take a break. I just did. Yeah. That's me, just disappearing from the internet at random points. I could go into an entire spiel on why I ended up losing the drive to make stuff for YouTube, but I'll just sum it up where I basically had, kind of a rhythm going. I had milestones. I was excited to hit these little mini goals that I was setting for myself, and I missed one, just one. And I let the perfectionist in me just eat me alive. And since I missed one, I was like, well, no one's gonna mind if I miss a second one, or a third one, or fourth one, or all of them. But yeah, that could just be an entire video in itself. Rather than just going off into an entire tangent, which I do enough when I stream at twitchtv.com/apocalypse, or in my podcast with DPayne that I host, link to that in the description, I go off on lots of tangents, and you know what, let's just get to the core of the video. Let's plan together my month for October. So apologies ahead of time. I know I have the issue recurring where sometimes you'll see the focus shift in and out, like right here. I'm still trying to figure out my setup. Fingers crossed I either had it not happen too often, fingers crossed I get rid of it in the future, but we'll see. In this journal, I decided I wanted to do some more theming than I usually do for my monthly spreads. I'm usually one to just aim for it to be practical, easy to use, easy to make up right away. But if you've been catching any of my Twitch streams or the podcast, you know that I really enjoy just the Halloween season as a whole. So I thought to pay tribute to that and to help me kind of get excited to get back into the bullet journaling side of things, which that is me admitting that in September, I not only didn't really make videos, I also didn't really journal for myself in a while. I know, bad habits die hard. But yeah, so I just really liked the idea of trying to do more of a theme. If you notice with how widespread I made the block lettering for my October 2020, I actually decided to try and do one of my first 2-page monthly spreads. So you can see me taking the ruler, and unfortunately, I think I've mentioned this in a previous video, my Micron black pen broke, the nib broke, or I used it to death. I have owned those micro pens for a number of years. So I was trying to use this like small fine line marker, and it's not comfortable. It's not great. You can see here when this line draws, it's like faded, and I don't know if it's just the lighting, but it's almost like the ink is coming out brown instead of black. And it overall wasn't even, it wasn't great. I think I should just reinvest in a new pen. But you know what? As you're building up a journal and using different tools, you learn from mistakes and you go and just try to do your best with them. I think I basically just gave up on this pen. You'll notice some of my lines for my calendar might not be the straightest and might not line up the best, but I did what I could. It was also just generally a fun experience for me to try and do a kind of different monthly spread than I have been doing. For a couple months straight, I was doing the same formula of the same type of calendar with the same exact spacing and same exact look to it. Another reason why I decided to go with this layout as opposed to my other layouts is I actually have a lot of events generally planned around streaming for this month. Those plans include just stream plans I have for myself as an individual, as well as trying to get plans together with groups of people. So you can kind of see in the pencil sketching I did before filming this that I have the events on the right hand side. In my previous months, I just had it on the bottom. And by having it at the bottom, I realized that there would not be enough room for me to fit in everything that I would want to keep note of for this month. So here's a finished look at just the general calendar itself. I had a lot of ideas go through my head for the theming of this. I was like, oh, maybe I can do oranges and yellows for fall leaves. But what I ended up deciding on as a whole is I wanted to just stick with the classic black and red and see what I could get to work from there. Here you can see me just going ahead and using a red Micron pen to fill in the dates. In hindsight, after filling in the dates, I feel like I should have done like a cool font or something fun, but you know, one step at a time. Creativity comes in waves. It doesn't hit me all at once all the time. It usually hits me later after I've already finished a project. I guess it's, you know, how they say, hindsight is 20/20. Yep. So once I had that done, I tried to go for kind of a scratching effect for the titles of my events and goals section. Apologies for the focus issue. I don't know why exactly the focus acts funny when it's moved down there like that. I'll have to take a better look. I wonder if it's just how fast I was moving my hand. Hopefully it didn't give you guys too much of a headache. Apologies. And then here I'm just going in and making note of what I have planned for the different days of the week. So on Wednesdays I started doing what I called visual novel nights. I was essentially working through a playthrough of Steins Gate. But for Halloween, I thought I'd go into one of my favorite indie games, and that is Monster Prom. Feels kind of Halloween themed, and I also thought it'd be fun to kind of cosplay some of the characters from it. So, if you'd love to see an amateur like me put on makeup that's not just for special occasions like weddings, you can catch me doing that about 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays on Twitch. And then Fridays, I have my Trifecta Friday group that I play games with, and we're just kind of running through the gambit of a bunch of community games that are within the Halloween theme. So far, we've done Among Us and Phasmophobia. We have been for years now making plans to play Friday the 13th with the community. I also have a cosplay for one of the characters from Friday the 13th, so I always think that's a fun one. And we're also considering just different games we can play together as a community. Then on Saturdays, I have the podcast that I mentioned earlier that I run with DPayne. We both co-host that, and since we're both a big fan of kind of the Halloween season, we thought that we would change it up, and all our topics for this month would be Halloween monsters. So I listed off all the different Halloween monsters so I can keep track of the different kinds of things that we'd be talking in the podcast, as well as to remind myself to look up fun facts, which we're starting to do on our Twitter. So the reason that I decided to go with the black and red is, you can see here, is I started to try and do the best I could do at kind of a blood stain pattern. I feel like as I started freehanding it and looking at it more and more, I think I started to actually build more of like a paisley pattern, just entirely in red. I don't dislike it, but I don't think it came out exactly the way I wanted it to. But in a way, it was pretty therapeutic just to get a chance to kind of color and freehand something for myself. Like I said, usually I come and do things very pre-planned. I like to have things pre-sketched and have a whole idea going ahead of time. But it was pretty nice to just doodle along and fill in the white space to give it more of that Halloween-esque theme. I felt like the blood splatters for me kind of read more for October than, say, pumpkins and things like that. I don't really go pumpkin picking. Instead, I watch scary movies and play a lot of horror games with friends. If you're ever curious how many horror game hours I'm willing to put into a game, I think I just hit level 14 in Phasmophobia. So don't mind me, but feel free to recruit me on your ghost hunting missions. You can see here, I was like, oh wait, like the top and bottom look pretty bare. If I squint hard enough and I hold the notebook far away enough from me, I feel like this could be a scene from Dexter, but I think I just need practice and more confidence in doodling and practicing freehand stuff, that's all. Looking at it again as a whole, I felt like the month itself didn't stand out very well, so I went back in with that fine liner marker and decided to give it a bit of a drop shadow, add a little bit of a 3D effect, and help it stand out from the rest of the page. I remember when I was first planning out this spread, I thought maybe it would be cool to have the calendar and maybe have the October drip in a blood pattern down onto the month. But then I realized, you know what? If I need to read anything in those first few days of the week or the month, it could be really hard to read through the marker. So instead I went with a block lettering. I try to think of ways to make October like creepy, but I thought it'd be best if that area was at least easy for me to read so I could come back quickly to it. Also here you can see I got very annoyed at the fact that the line was not filled in completely for the calendar, so I went and retraced it. Unfortunately, I did notice a little bit of bleed through onto the next page for me planning my weekly spread, but overall I didn't think it was too terrible for me to come through and start filling it out. I decided not to really jump into my weekly spread, so here's a final look at my monthly spread. If you have any questions, comments, or any tips for me, please do share in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye.